Okay, good morning, dear students. How are you? How are you this week? We are going to continue reading the Canterville Ghost, chapter number 4 and chapter number 5. The objective of this lesson is to demonstrate comprehension of oral and written text, and also you have to use present perfect tense in different contexts, right? Let's begin. The first activity you are going to do, it's a little bit related to the previous chapter. Different situations, you have to decide if they are true or false according to the previous chapters from the last class, right? I'm going to read these 6 different statements. 1. Mr. Otis didn't want to hurt the ghost because he has lived there for a very long time. Number 2. The blood stain on the library floor never changes its color. 3. Mrs. Otis gave some medicine to the ghost because she thought he was sick. 4. The ghost was very ill for some days. He only went out to make the blood stain again. 5. The Canterville Ghost wanted to scare the family once more, so he improvised all his movements. And finally, number 6. When the Canterville Ghost saw the Otis Ghost, he got surprised, but not afraid at all. Right? Remember, copy this activity on your copybook, and then you have to write true or false according to the book. Before to read the book, we have 3 different groups of vocabulary words, right? And then we have verbs, nouns, and adjectives. Verbs, remember, they are actions. We have the word, a verb in past state, which is a verb, yes, as I already mentioned, that is not move away from or not leave a place or situation. Then quedarse, but is in past, so we have to translate a quedó in past. Then we have a very common word we've already studied in the previous lessons, right? We have frightened, a verb to make someone feel fear. Yes, this is a new word we already studied in the previous chapter, asustar. Yes. Then we have another word. This word is disappeared, and this verb is in past because you have ed ending. There we have ed ending. When people or things go somewhere where they cannot be found, this is desapareció. Here we have the group of nouns or sustantivos. We have the word jug, which is a container for holding liquids. Yes, a jar, un jarro. Then we have a compound word, garden syringe. This is a kind of instrument or a long plastic rubber pipe used to water onto garden. That is aspersor para jardín. Think about un fumigador, something it's help or useful for give water or other kinds of contents to the garden, to the plants or flowers, right? Por eso piensen en un fumigador. Then we have another word, fireplace. It's chimenea. Yes, very common word too. Another group of words, adjectives, okay, los adjetivos. We have angry, we have ill, and pretty, right? Angry, enojado, probably you already know this word. We have the word ill, like enfermo or sick, también podrían ser synonyms, ill, not feeling well. And pretty, in this context, we have pleasant, to look at, or attractive. Yes, pretty, beautiful is bonito. Another groups, we have the words crashing and laughing. 2 more actions. Crashing, caer, fall down with a lot of noise and force, caer o también chocar, crashing. Laughing, To smile. Yes, reír. In that context, we have ing, riendo, right? We have to continue with words related to nouns. Nutshells, cáscara, the hard outer covering. Yes, it's a covering. For example, of a nut, right? Tricks. Yes, very common this word. Trucos, bromas. Yes. Useful as an adjective and dirty. Useful is something you can use. Útil. Yes. And dirty, something or someone that is not clean. The opposite of clean is dirty. Okay. Opposite. Antonyms, right? Well, it's time to begin to read chapter number 4 from the book The Canterville Ghost. The name of the chapter is Enemies Everywhere. For the next 5 days, the ghost stayed in his room. He was very tired and he didn't feel well. He decided to stop putting the blood stain on the library floor. The Otis family don't want it, he thought, so they are not going to have it. Ghostly appearances were different, of course. It was his job to appear in the passage once a week and to oh and ha from the great window on the stairs on the first and third Wednesday in every month. So for the next 3 Saturdays, as usual, he walked along the passages between midnight and 3 o'clock. But he didn't want anybody to see or hear him. He took off his shoes and walked as quietly as he could. He wore a large black coat and was careful to use tamanis and oil on his chains. At first, he didn't want to, but one evening, while the family was at dinner, he went into Mr. Otis' bedroom and took the bottle. After a time, he saw that the oil was really very useful. But the twins still went on with their tricks. They put things in his way in dark corners, and he fell over them. They put butter on the top stairs, and one night his feet went from under him, and he went crashing down the stairs to the bottom. This made him very angry, and he decided to visit the boys the next night. As the famous Duke with no head, and frightened them half to death. He spent 3 hours getting ready and was very pleased with how he looked. At 1:15, he walked through the wall and moved silently through the passages to the twins' bedroom. The door was opened a little way. Pushing it hard, the ghost walked into the room, and a heavy jug of water fell right down on him. At the same time, he heard the twins laughing in their beds. The ghost went from top to bottom, turned and ran from the room. He did not stop until he was back in his room. The next day, he was ill with a bad cold. After this, the ghost stopped trying to frighten the American family. He walked silently around the passage in soft shoes, carrying an old can, and tried to stay away from everywhere. The last of the tricks happened on the 19th of September. That night, the ghost was wearing one of his favorite gowns, and he decided to walk down to the library. He wanted to see what was left on the blood stain. He was on his way there when two shapes jumped out of a dark corner of the passage and shouted "Boo!" in his ear. The ghost was very frightened, of course, and ran to the stairs. But Washington Otis was waiting for him there with a big garden syringe. There were enemies on all sides. "Ah!" the ghost cried, then turned quickly and disappeared into the fireplace, which, luckily for him, was not lit. When at last he got back to his room, he was terribly dirty, with black all over his favorite frown, and very unhappy. After this, nobody saw him again at night. The twins waited to play tricks on him 3 or 4 times. They put nutshells all along the passages, which made walking around difficult for everyone in the house, but the ghost did not appear. "Oh dear, he's too unhappy to come out," they say. Mr. Otis began work again on his book. Mrs. Otis gave a number of big American parties for the English people who lived near them. The boys played in the house and garden, and Virginia went horse riding with the young Duke of Cheshire. He was staying at Canterville Chase for the last week of his holidays. Mr. Otis wrote a letter to Lord Canterville and said, "We think that the ghost has gone away." And Lord Canterville wrote back, "I am happy to hear it." But Mr. Otis was wrong. The ghost was still in the house, and it is true that he was ill, but he was not yet ready to stop his ghostly work. The young Duke of Cheshire was staying in the house, and the ghost knew the Duke family well. He once appeared before the brother of the Duke's grandfather as the horseman of death. The poor man's hair turned white in one night, and for the rest of his life he could only say words, "Turn out the light, turn on the light." Now the ghost wanted to do the horseman of death for the young Duke too. He got everything ready, but in the end he never left his room. He was too frightened of the twins to go out, and the young Duke slept happily in his bed, thinking of pretty Virginia. Well, there we have the first activity you have to complete. Here we have column A and column B, and you have to do a matching. Remember to copy this activity on your copybook. Another activity in this, you have different questions, 5 questions, but you have to complete with this alternative, okay? Remember what this WH question means in Spanish. All this activity you have to do on your copybook. And this is the optional activity. It's not an obligation for you, but you can do that, okay? Here you have chapter number 4, and you have to write, if you want, it's not an obligation, a review, and you have to record your voice 1 or 2 minutes. You have to use present perfect, use WH questions, use vocabulary, and you have to send by email. Okay, we are going to continue with chapter number 5 in the next video. Okay, dear student, remember this activity is optional. It's not an obligation for you. Okay, let's continue in the another video.